Andrew Huberman is a master at bringing on experts in the world of neuroscience and putting them onto his podcast. His recent series with Dr. Matt Walker on sleep is over 15 hours long, and I listened to it. I expected it to all be review, but there was one thing that I learned from them. In my 20 plus years of taking care of broken brains, sleep is an area that, well, it's the beginning, middle, and end for anybody's brain who isn't working well. The amount of study and practice and repractice and learning and training and reprogramming that I have done with patients is in the thousands of hours. So to listen to this extended podcast, it was a nice, comforting review that most of the stuff I was doing and telling people is exactly what they were doing. The synergy between what they were saying and what I tell patients is, yes, your brain isn't sleeping well because it's been wired to not sleep well. This is not a genetic condition that you can never fix. It is a process that your brain has kind of whittled a pathway in the wrong direction, and if you want to repair it, there are several steps in the right direction that you'll need to go. His list through the sleep hygiene is very important, something that I taught my kids as they were aging, and I've taught thousands of patients. Our list differs a little bit, but for the most part, we match. You'll see that list of sleep hygiene here. What I like patients to remember when I show them this list of sleep hygiene, for which we spend time on each of these rules, is that if you're sleeping well, you can break these rules. But when you're not sleeping well, these rules become practically biblical in order to get the brain back to where it's supposed to be and to get the depth of sleep that you're going to need to keep those chronic diseases away, to keep the memory strong, and to reset that immune system every night during that deep, very reparative sleep. The biggest rule that I often get asked about and that patients fight against is that phone in your bed or anywhere near your bed as you're sleeping. This was never a problem when I started practice, but every patient brings this up now. So if you're having trouble sleeping and the phone is anywhere in your bedroom, get it out of there, at least until your brain is sleeping again, all the way through the night. You may want to dive in and listen to all 15 hours of these two gentlemen talking about the neuroscience and the sleep processes that, well, frankly, I loved it. But let me share the one thing that I learned while listening to them. So there is this process and problem that when patients come to you and we start with these basics, those sleep hygiene rules, they're working on the sleep hygiene, but yeah, their brain is not sleeping well. Although I can write a prescription and get your brain to sleep, it's not what's necessary to get a brain to repair and then not need anything else to sleep. It's in these folks that are in a season of insomnia. They try all these rules, but as soon as their head hits the pillow, it's like their brain turns on superpowers. And they think of all ways to save the world. They hang out in that bed too long, and then they come in and say, "Doc, tell me what to do. This has to stop." What Dr. Matt Walker and Dr. Andrew Huberman were talking about is the process they use to train a brain to go from that insomnia phase where they can't shut down to one that's more normal. Now, this is not the first thing to do. So if you're having insomnia, do not skip the basics. Go listen to their podcast and you can find all those. Typically, when a patient first comes to me, we'll talk about setting a routine bedtime, setting a routine wake-up time, and no napping during the day as we are trying to reprogram how their brain shuts down and wakes up. When we've gone through several of these stages and they are still having severe insomnia, I'm going to now adopt this trick that they talked about on the podcast, and it is to take advantage of the sleep debt. So the patient comes in and says, "All right, doc, I go to bed at 10 o'clock, like you said. I shut down for 2 hours ahead of time. I've got all the lights down. My temperatures, all the sleep hygiene looks great. But I cannot get my brain to shut off. And it doesn't really fall asleep until like 3 o'clock in the morning. And of course, I can't really wake up until, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. And that really wrecks my day." In that patient, the protocol they use is to say, you don't go into the bed until you feel tired. And you only use this bed for sleeping and sex. Nothing else happens inside your bed. So the patient heads into the bedroom and something typical happens. They put their head on the pillow and just like last night, their brain wakes up again. So if they are not asleep by that 15-minute mark, they are to get out of bed and do anything but sleep. They are to let that sleep debt get higher and higher, get more intense in their brain, to the point where the sleep debt is so high that they get into that bed and they crash, they fall asleep. The key to this plan is they have to keep a stable wake-up time. That 6 a.m. in the morning, or whatever time we decided, is the time they have to wake up. And they spend the next day with only 3 hours of sleep. And they say, "Doc, you're making this worse. It's not getting better." I'm like, hold on. 2 or 3 nights of this same pattern, where they go to bed at a time where they think they're sleepy. We no longer use that set time to fall asleep. They think they're sleepy. They put their head on the pillow. And if they're not sleeping within 15 minutes, they get out of bed. And they wait till they feel that fatigue, to the point where now they go to bed and they crash. They sleep really hard. And what they're really getting is probably 3 to 4 hours of real sleep. But unlike other nights, this sleep happens rather quickly in their bed and they stay asleep. The alarm gets them up at that standard time and they go through this again. 4 to 5 nights of that decreased sleep debt, and now we are going to use this as the bedtime. Their bedtime is X, their wake-up time is Y, and they're only sleeping for 4 hours. Now, this is a terrible plan if you have a little problem, but this is the process to get their brain to read the cue that the bed is the place to sleep, and not this place where their brain revs up and takes on the troubles of the world. If they have success, which means they shut down within 10 minutes of putting their head on the pillow, and they sleep through the night until the alarm, which is only now 4 hours and 15 minutes, they stay there for 6 nights. If they're successful, they extend it by another 15 minutes. So now they go to bed 15 minutes earlier, again, 30 minutes earlier than the first phase. As they continue to extend the sleep time, no naps are allowed, and that sleep debt is less as they program their brain to go to the bed, shut down, and continually sleep through the night and wake up in the morning. The goal is to get that brain to shut down for 7.5 hours. This isn't fake news or hyperbole. It is 7.5 hours at least to get a human brain to shut down well enough to flush out all the trash in the brain, to reset that immune system, and to promote that rapid and robust metabolism for the next day. If you have a little bit of insomnia, do not do this protocol. If you're caught in the cycle of severe insomnia, take this protocol, go to your doctor, and ask them if you can do it. If you're not quite up for the 15 hours Huberman podcast, I do have a sleep lecture from 2012. It's the oldest video I have on YouTube, but check it out. There's a handout to go along, and it's what I tell my patients. They have to go watch and fill out that handout before they can see me to help with their sleep. Check it out. I'll see you there.